Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands, but it barely made a difference after 14 hours of crawling through atmospheric processors on Nexus Prime's lower decks. The space station hummed with life from 1,000 different worlds and right. Now all Marcus wanted was food and silence. He grabbed a tray of synth protein from the cafeteria dispensary and scanned the massive dining hall. Thousands of beings filled the tables, chattering in languages that made his translator implant buzz. With effort near the back, he spotted a quiet alcove with just one table and only one person sitting there. Perfect. Marcus shuffled over and dropped into the chair across from her without really looking up. When he finally raised his eyes, he saw a young woman in a strange hover chair. She was human, which was rare this far from Earth. Body sat perfectly still except for her eyes, which moved to look at him. Really look at him. Marcus nodded politely and started shoveling food into his mouth. The woman didn't move or speak or react beyond those eyes tracking his every motion. There were elaborate devices built into her chair, things that hummed and glowed with soft blue light. Marcus chewed his synth protein and tried not to stare at
one polite.
And he was too tired to make conversation anyway. Then he noticed the silence around them wasn't natural. The alcove had been separated from the main cafeteria by decorative screens, and now that he looked closer, there were no other people nearby. Foot traffic, nothing. His spine tingled with the feeling that he'd made. A mistake. Heavy footsteps echoed from behind the screens. 4 guards in ceremonial armor stepped into view, their hands moving to weapons at their hips. The armor was imperial, which meant these weren't station security. These were the Emperor's own guards. Marcus's stomach dropped. He stood quickly, his chair scraping backward, and held up his grease-stained hands in surrender. "I'm sorry, I didn't know this area was restricted." "Leave right now." The guards didn't shoot him, but they didn't relax. Either one of them spoke into a cum device, while another moved to stand between Marcus and the exit. The woman's eyes darted frantically across a holographic display that materialized in front of her chair. Her eyes moved in precise patterns, left, right, up, down, selecting letters, one agonizing blink at a time. After what felt like an eternity, a synthesized voice emerged from the chair's speakers. "Stay." Marcus looked at the guards, then back at the woman. "Ma'am, I really should go. I didn't mean to intrude." Her eyes moved again across the display. "Faster this time. Please stay." The head guard's expression shifted from hostile to confused. He touched his cum again and spoke in rapid Imperial standard, too quick for Marcus's implant to fully translate. More guards arrived, then advisors in flowing robes, then medical personnel with scanning equipment. Marcus stood frozen as a small crowd gathered in the alcove. Everyone stared at the woman, and the hover irony of the advisors approached Marcus, his crystalline face unreadable. "What did you do to make the princess engage?" "Princess." The word hit Marcus like a physical blow. "I just sat down and ate my dinner." The advisor's faceted eyes narrowed in disbelief. "Princess Arya has not willingly communicated with anyone in 3 standard years, and you expect us to believe you accomplished this by accident?" Marcus looked at the young woman Arya and saw something in her eyes that might have been amusement. "I don't know what to tell you. I'm just a mechanic." "I had no idea who she was," the crowd murmured among themselves in a dozen languages. One of the medical staff stepped forward with a scanner. "Impossible." The princess suffered complete neuromuscular paralysis from a viral attack. She retained only minimal eye movement and cognitive function, but has shown no interest in communication since the incident. Arya's eyes moved across her display again. "He treated me like a person." The synthesized voice was flat, emotionless, but the words seemed to stun everyone
Out.
into silence. Marcus felt like he'd stepped into a nightmare.
Out.
He wanted was a quiet meal, and now he was apparently at the center of some imperial incident. New presence entered the alcove. Everyone bowed immediately, even the senior advisors. Marcus didn't know imperial protocol, but he figured he should probably bow too. So he did. Emperor Thaldax III stood nearly 3 meters tall, with skin like polished crystal that refracted the light into rainbow patterns. His eyes were deep pools of liquid silver. When he spoke, his voice resonated like distant thunder. "You are the human mechanic." It wasn't a question. "Yes, Your Majesty." Marcus Chen. "I work on the stations. Environmental systems." The Emperor studied him for a long moment. My daughter has not spoken to anyone of her own will since she was attacked. She has the finest medical care in the Imperium. The best technology from 100 worlds, yet she chooses to speak to a grease-covered mechanic who sits at her table by accident. Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Arya's eyes danced across her display. Father, he didn't see a broken princess. He saw a person sitting alone. He sat down like it was normal, like I was normal. The Emperor's crystalline features softened almost imperceptibly. He looked at Marcus with those silver eyes. You will return tomorrow. You will eat your midday meal with my daughter. You will speak with her. As you did today, Your Majesty. I don't think I'm qualified. It is not a request. The Emperor turned and left. The advisors and guards followed in a flowing mass of robes and armor within. Moments the alcove was quiet again, just Marcus and Princess Arya. Marcus slowly sat back down in his chair. His synth protein had gone cold. Arya's moved, and the synthesized voice spoke again. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ruin your quiet meal. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her this time. She was young, maybe early 20s, with dark hair and eyes that held far too much awareness for someone supposedly trapped in her own body. You didn't ruin anything, Your Highness, though. I have to admit this wasn't how I expected my day to end. Call me Arya. And welcome to the most awkward dinner arrangement in Imperial history. Marcus laughed. He couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation hit him all at once. Mechanic ordered by the Emperor to have lunch with a paralyzed princess. His eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. It took Marcus a moment to realize she was trying to smile. Same time tomorrow, he said. Same time tomorrow. The synthesized voice agreed. Marcus gathered his tray and left the alcove. His quiet meal had just become a daily imperial obligation. He had no idea how this would change everything. Marcus arrived at the alcove exactly at midday, carrying his lunch tray and feeling completely out of place. The Imperial guards nodded to him now, which was somehow more unsettling than when they'd wanted to shoot. Maria was already there, her hover chair positioned at the same table. Her eyes brightened when she saw him. You came back. I wasn't sure you would. The synthesized voice still sounded flat, but Marcus was learning to read her expressions. The Emperor commanded. It seemed unwise to refuse you. Could have requested a transfer off station. My father would have allowed it. If you were uncomfortable, Marcus set down his tray and sat. Are you trying to get rid of me already, Princess? Arya? And no, I'm trying to give you an escape if you want. One, most people can't handle being around me for long. Marcus took a bite of his synth protein, which tasted just as terrible as yesterday. I fix broken machines for a living. You think a hover chair and some medical equipment scares me? Arya's eyes did that crinkling thing again. Over the next few weeks, they fell into a routine. Marcus would finish his morning shift covered in hydraulic fluid or coolant or whatever had sprayed on him that dadded. Grab lunch and head to the alcove area. Would be waiting at first. Marcus did most of the talking because Arya's tracking communication was slow and laborious. Told her about his work fixing atmospheric recyclers that the previous shift had somehow filled with fermented grain. Mashy complained about the station's terrible coffee. He described Earth, things like rain and oceans that Arya had never experienced. She listened with an intensity that made him self-conscious at first. Gradually, he realized she was starving for normal conversation. Someone who didn't treat her like a tragic figure or a political problem. Tell me about your family, Arya asked one day. Marcus hesitated. Not much to tell. My parents run a small farm in the American Midwest. Boring stuff, really. I came out here for work. You're lying. Her bluntness surprised him. Okay, not lying, just omitting. I have a sister. Sarah. She has a degenerative neural condition. You don't really know what caused it, but she's been in a wheelchair since she was 16, so you do understand. Yeah, I guess I do. Everyone looks at Sarah with pity, like she's already gone, but she's still in there, still sharp, still herself. Just trapped in a body that doesn't work right. Arya's eyes tracked across her display slowly, deliberately. That's exactly what it's like. People look at me and see a broken thing. They see the Emperor's poor paralyzed daughter, but they don't see me. I see you. The words came out before Marcus could think about them. Maria's eyes held his for a long moment. I know that's Why I wanted you to stay. As the weeks passed, Arya began sharing her own story. She'd explained that 3 years ago she'd been the most active of the Emperor's children. She studied xenobiology and imperial law, traveled to different worlds. She was being groomed for a significant role in the succession then. One morning she woke up and couldn't move. The paralysis was complete and sudden. Imperial doctors identified a neural virus specifically engineered to attack the royal family's unique biology. It should have killed her. Instead, it left her trapped. They've tried everything, Arya said during one lunch. Neural regeneration therapy, quantum healing, cybernetic implants, even experimental treatments from species. We barely have diplomatic relations. With nothing works, Marcus pushed his food around his tray. What exactly did the virus do? I mean, mechanically speaking? It attacked the neuromuscular interface, the connection between my brain and my body. The signals just don't get through anymore, but you can move your eyes barely, and only because they installed these implants early on, they restore maybe 1% of neural function, enough for eye tracking, but that's it. Marcus thought about this. He spent his days working on interfaces between different technologies, making human systems talk to alien machines, and vice versa. It was all about signal transmission and interpretation. Can I ask you something technical about your implants? Arya seemed surprised, but curious, of course. The virus attacked your neuromuscular interface and the implants restored eye movement. What kind of protocol do the implants use for signal processing? I have no idea. Let me check. Her eyes moved across screens, pulling up her medical files. Data scrolled past, and Marcus leaned forward, studying it. That's a recursive error correction algorithm, he said. Is that bad? It's sophisticated, maybe too sophisticated. See, the algorithm detects errors in neural signals and tries to correct them by comparing them to expected patterns, but if the virus created cascading micro-failures, then every correction might trigger new errors, which trigger more corrections. Arya's eyes widened like a feedback loop. Exactly, your implants might be making things worse by trying too hard to fix them. Every specialist in the Imperium has examined me. Are you saying they all miss something this fundamental? Marcus sat back, feeling suddenly foolish. I'm just a mechanic. I'm probably wrong, or you're looking at the problem differently. The doctors see a medical issue. You see an engineering problem. It's just a theory. Arya's eyes moved rapidly across her display. Marcus, John, you're the first person in 3 years to suggest something that actually makes sense. What would you need to test your theory? Access to your neural implant specifications, and probably some serious equipment. I don't have. You'll have both. My father wants me better. He'll give you whatever you need, Arya. I could be completely wrong, and even if I'm right, attempting to modify your implants could be dangerous. I've been trapped in my own body for 3 years, barely able to communicate, watching the world happen around me, while sit frozen. Dangerous is relative, Marcus. Met her eyes, there was fierce determination there. This wasn't a helpless princess. This was someone who'd spent 3 years observing, learning, waiting for a chance. If we do this, it has to be your choice. Not your father's, not mine, yours. I choose to try. I choose to trust you. Marcus felt the weight of that trust settle on his shoulders. He was a mechanic, not a doctor, but he understood interfaces and signal processing. Maybe that was exactly what Arya needed. Okay, I'll need to examine your implants properly, not just read files. I need to see how they interact with your neural tissue. I'll arrange it. And Arya, if this doesn't work, then at least someone tried. At least someone saw me as a person worth saving, not as a political problem or a tragedy. Marcus nodded. He finished his lunch and stood to leave. Same time tomorrow, and Marcus, thank you for seeing me. He left the alcove, his mind already racing with possibilities. Stumbled into this by accident, sat at the wrong table, but maybe that accident was about to change everything. The Royal Medical Bay was 10 times larger than Marcus's entire workshop equipment. From dozens of worlds lined the walls, some of it so advanced Marcus couldn't begin to guess its function. He stood in the center of it all, feeling very small and very human. Emperor Thaldax III observed from a viewing gallery above his crystalline form refracted the medical bay's lights into dancing rainbows. My daughter believes you can help her. The Emperor said, I have a theory, Your Majesty. Nothing more. Every physician in the Imperium has had theories. The best minds from 100 worlds have examined her. You are a mechanic who fixes air recyclers. Why should I allow this? Marcus took a breath because I don't see her condition as a medical problem. Your Majesty, I see it as an engineering problem, and sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. You have 1 week to examine her implants and present your findings. If your theory has merit, you may proceed. If not, you will return to your work and never speak of this again. Understood. Arya was brought in by medical attendants. They transferred her carefully to an examination platform her eyes found. Marcus immediately ready to prove everyone wrong. Her synthesized voice asked, ready to probably embarrass myself in front of the Emperor's medical staff. Several high-ranking physicians had gathered to observe. Their expressions ranged from curious to openly hostile. Marcus ignored them and focused on Arya. He started with the basics, mapping her neural implant network with scanners. The implants were beautiful in their complexity, microscopic. Threads woven throughout her nervous system, each one capable of reading and transmitting neural signals. But as Marcus studied the data patterns, something became clear. There it is, he muttered. What did you find? One of the physicians demanded. Marcus pulled up a holographic display showing signal pathways. Look at this, the implants are processing neural signals through a recursive error correction protocol. Every time a signal fails to reach its destination, the implant tries to correct it. By comparing it to stored patterns of what the signal should look like, yes, that's standard procedure for neural damage. Right, but look what happens when you have cascading microfailures from the virus. Every correction attempt generates new errors, which trigger more corrections, which generate more errors. It's an infinite loop. The physician studied the display, his expression shifting from hostility to interest. The implants are actually reinforcing the paralysis. Exactly, the more they try to help, the worse they make it. Another physician stepped forward. Even if you're correct and I'm not conceding that you are, how would you fix it? You can't simply turn off error correction. The princess would lose even the minimal function she currently has. Marcus had spent every night that week working on this problem. He pulled up schematics he'd created in his cramped workshop. We don't turn off error correction. We interrupt the recursive loop. I propose installing simple interrupt circuits at key neural junctions human-designed. Circuits that break the feedback cycle before it can reinforce itself. The room erupted in objections. You want to install primitive human technology alongside imperial neural implants? That's barbaric. The incompatibility alone could kill her emperor. Thaldax's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Silence. Let him finish, Marcus continued, his hands shaking slightly. The circuits would be crude compared to the existing implants, but that's the point. They're too simple to participate in the error loop. They just interrupt the signal, pass it through, and send it on its way. No processing, no correction, just transmission.
And you believe this will restore function? The Emperor asked. I believe it will stop the implants from actively preventing function, whether the princess can then relearn to move.
I can't promise, but it gives her a chance. Arya's eyes moved across her display. I want to proceed, princess. The risks, one of the physicians protested. I'm aware of the risks. I've lived with this condition for 3 years. I've watched every treatment fail. This is the first explanation that actually makes sense to me. The Emperor descended from the viewing gallery. He approached the examination platform and looked down at his daughter, the mighty ruler of the Galactic Imperium, and is paralyzed. Child, you understand this human mechanic could be wrong? This procedure could leave you worse than you are, or could kill you. Yes, father, I understand, and you still wish to proceed. I do. I trust Marcus. The Emperor turned to Marcus's silver eyes seemed to see straight through him. If you fail, if my daughter is harmed, I will have you executed. Do you understand? Marcus's mouth went dry, but he nodded. I understand, Your Majesty. Then you have my permission to proceed. The physicians erupted in protests again, but the Emperor silenced them with a gesture. Over the next 3 days, Marcus worked in his own workshop. He couldn't use the royal medical Bathy equipment there was to advance to automated. He needed to handcraft each interrupt. Circuitaria was brought to his workshop. Each day the Imperial guards looked deeply uncomfortable, standing among spare parts and tools covered in oil. Marcus explained everything as he worked. This circuit goes here at the base of your spine. It interrupts signals from your lower body. Will it hurt? The installation will hurt, yes, but once it's in place, You shouldn't feel it. I meant, will it hurt when I try to move, assuming this works? Marcus paused. Probably your muscles haven't been used in 3 years. Relearning will be painful. Good pain is something I can work with. On the 4th day, someone sabotaged his workshop. Marcus arrived to find half his equipment destroyed, tools missing, schematics deleted from his computer. He stood amid the wreckage. Feeling rage build in his chest, Arya was brought in as scheduled. Her eyes took in the destruction. Someone doesn't want this to succeed. Someone with access to station security who knew exactly what to destroy. The court, Arya said quietly. Why would they do this? Because if I recover, I return to the succession. There are factions who prefer me incapacitated. Marcus felt sick. Your own people did this. Not my people, a few ambitious individuals who see opportunity in my suffering. We need to tell your father no. If we reveal the sabotage, they'll find a way to stop the procedure, officially claim it's too dangerous, or that you're not qualified. We proceed as planned. Arya, I don't have the equipment anymore. Then improvise. You're human. Aren't you supposed to be good at that? Marcus looked at the wreckage, then at Arya, then at the basic tools that remained. Yeah, we're pretty good at improvising. He spent 2 days rebuilding, using whatever he could scavenge. The circuits weren't as elegant as his original designs. They were cruder, rougher, but they would work. They had to work the morning of the procedure. Marcus barely slept. He arrived at his workshop to find Arya already there, ready. She asked, terrified. Good, that means you're taking this seriously now. Let's make history, Marcus, began the installation. Hours of precise work connecting human-designed circuits to alien neural implants. One wrong move could sever Arya's spine, could damage her brain, could kill her, but his hands stayed steady. Arya remained awake throughout. She insisted on it. I want to feel it if something goes right. Hour after hour, circuit after circuit, the guards watched in silence. The Emperor had observers monitoring via remote feed. Marcus's entire world narrowed to the microscopic connections he was making then. Finally, he installed the last circuit. That's it. It's done. Everyone waited. Arya's eyes were closed in concentration. Marcus watched the neural activity monitors. The feedback loops were breaking signals. We're getting through. And then Arya's right index finger twitched, just a tiny movement, but movement. The guards gasped. Marcus felt tears on his face. Arya's eyes opened. Did I just move? Yes. You moved. Her finger twitched again, then her whole hand shifted slightly. Arya started crying. The synthesized voice couldn't convey emotion, but her eyes did. Marcus, it's working. It's actually working. He wanted to celebrate, but he knew this was just the beginning. The real work of recovery lay ahead, still for now. This moment was enough. A finger twitch, a small victory, proof that sometimes the crude human approach was exactly what was needed. Recovery was brutal. Arya had spent 3 years motionless. Her muscles had atrophied. Her neural pathways had to relearn everything, but she could move, first just fingers, then her hands. After 2 weeks, she could lift her arms. Marcus visited every day during her physical therapy. He watched her struggle to grip a simple ball, watched her face contort with effort and pain. Tell me this gets easier, she said through gritted teeth. Her voice was her own noun, more synthesized speech. It was weak and raspy from disuse, but real. It gets easier. You're lying again. Yeah, but you need to hear it anyway. She laughed. The sound was rusty, but genuine. The Imperial physicians were baffled. The crude human circuits were working better than their advanced technology. They studied Marcus's designs with mixture of fascination and wounded pride, but not everyone was pleased. Marcus started noticing things. Guards who watched him too closely, equipment that malfunctioned at suspicious times, messages that disappeared from his device. One night, he was working late in his workshop. When the lights cut out, he heard footsteps in the darkness. Chen, the human mechanic, who thinks himself a miracle worker. The voice was cultured, speaking perfect standard. Who's there? The lights came back on. 3 figures stood in his workshop. 2 were enforcers, hired muscle. The third was an imperial courtier, robes of office, rings of rank. You've become a problem, the courtier said. I just fixed some broken circuits. You've given hope to a princess who should remain quietly incapacitated. You've elevated human status in the Imperium. You've disrupted very carefully laid plans. Marcus understood. Then you're the ones who poisoned Arya. We merely prevented a succession crisis. The princess was too reformist, too sympathetic to lesser species like yours. With her out of the picture, the traditional order could be maintained. She's recovering, that order is already disrupted. The courtier smiled coldly, which is why you're going to have an unfortunate accident, and the princess will suffer a tragic relapse. We have people in the medical staff who can ensure the circuits you installed fail catastrophically. The enforcers moved forward. Marcus grabbed a plasma torch from his workbench. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was something. The Emperor will know. The Emperor is grief-stricken over his daughter. He sees what he wants to see, and right now he wants to believe you're a hero when you're revealed as a fraud who damaged him. The princess, further, our supporters will ensure justice is swift. Marcus's mind rest. He needed to warn Ari and needed to expose these conspirators. First, he needed to survive the next 5 minutes. The enforcers rushed him. Marcus swung the plasma torch. Arc of superheated gas caught one enforcer across the chest. The alien screamed and fell. The second enforcer was faster. A fist caught Marcus in the ribs. He heard something crack. Pain exploded through his side. He stumbled back, knocking over a shelf. Tools clattered everywhere. The enforcer advanced. Marcus grabbed a hydraulic spanner and swung with everything he had. Impact rang through his arms. The enforcer went down, but the courtier had a weapon. Now, small, elegant pistol, probably illegal on the station, definitely. Lethal, resourceful, but ultimately futile. The courtier aimed. Marcus closed his eyes. Pulse blast lit up the workshop, but Marcus wasn't high. Opened his eyes. The courtier was on the ground. Aria stood in the doorway of the workshop, leaning heavily on a walking frame. One hand held a guard's pulse rifle. Her arm shook with the effort. "Hello, Counselor Vex. I've been waiting 3 years to say this. You're under arrest for high treason." More guards poured into the workshop. Riel, Imperial guards loyal to the throne. Vex tried to run. He made it 3 steps before guards tackled him. Maria lowered the rifle and nearly collapsed. Marcus rushed to her, catching her before she fell. "How did you know?" "I didn't know for certain, but I've been suspicious. And when you didn't come for our evening check-in, I knew something was wrong. You can barely walk. You shouldn't have come. You saved my life. I wasn't going to let them take yours." The guards secured Vex, and his enforcers, a medic, examined Marcus's ribs. Cracked but not broken head. Lavaria was helped to a chair. The exertion had exhausted her. "Vex wasn't working alone," she said to the guard captain. "We know. Your Highness, we've been investigating the poisoning for 3 years. With your recovery, you've been able to provide information we couldn't get before. I watched everything during my paralysis. I saw who visited, who spoke freely around me, thinking. I was unaware. I know everyone involved." The captain nodded. "Grimly, we'll need your testimony. You'll have it, all of it, over the next week." The conspiracy unraveled. Arya provided names, dates, conversations. Spent 3 years as an invisible observer. The perfect spy, in plain sight. 17 court officials were arrested, from minor nobles to off-world conspirators. The scope of it shocked the Imperium Emperor. Thaldax addressed the Imperial court personally. Marcus watched from the gallery. Arya sat beside her father, still in a hover chair for long periods. But she could stand now, walk short distances. My daughter was struck down by those who feared change, who feared the future. The Emperor's voice resonated through the chamber. They thought her silence made her powerless, but they gave her 3 years to observe, to learn, to understand exactly who they were. She knows your secrets, counselors. She knows your schemes. She saw everything. The court was silent. Fear rippled through the assembled nobles. And she will have justice. The trials were swift. Imperial Were exiled to prison worlds, their families stripped of rank, their names erased from court records. Through it all, Arya grew stronger. She, scratch freed from hover chair to walking frame to cane. Her voice grew clearer, her movements more confident. Marcus continued his work as a mechanic. He refused a position at court, turned down titles and estates, but he accepted a small research grant to study human-alien technological integration. You could be rich, Arya told him during one of their lunches. They still met in that alcove, same table where they'd first met. I don't need rich. I need purpose. Fixing things gives me that. You fixed me. You were never broken. Arya, you were just trapped. She smiled. She did that more now. The court is buzzing about humanity. No, after what you did, requests for human engineers have increased. Tenfold. Species, who never gave Earth a second thought, are now seeking human expertise. We're good at jury-rigging solutions. You're good at seeing problems differently. Everyone. Species in the Imperium has been building technology for thousands of years. We've become locked into certain ways of thinking, but humans. You're still new, still creative, still willing to try crude, simple solutions that actually work. Marcus pushed his synth protein around his plate. Still tasted terrible. Some things never changed. What about you? What's next for the recovering princess? Arya's expression became serious. Father wants me to take a formal role in the succession I've been offered. The position of imperial advocate. What does that mean? It means I represent the interests of species and individuals who don't have traditional power in court, including humans. Marcus set down his fork. You're going to change the Imperium. Going to try the traditional order. Almost killed me. Literally, I won't let it hurt others. They'll fight you. Let them. I spent 3 years silent now. I have a voice, and I intend to use it. Marcus raised his cup of terrible station coffee in a mock toast to using your voice. Arya clinked her cup against his. Two humans who sit at the wrong table. They drank the terrible coffee. Tasted a little better somehow outside the alcove. The station hummed with life. The Imperium continued on, but something had shifted. A human mechanic had done what the best imperial technology couldn't. A paralyzed princess had brought down a conspiracy from her hover chair, and the galaxy was starting to realize that maybe humanity had something valuable to offer. After all, sometimes the crude approach worked. Sometimes the outsider saw what the experts is. Sometimes sitting at the wrong table was exactly the right thing to do. 6 months after the conspiracy trials, Marcus Chen was elbow deep in a malfunctioning waste reclamation system when his cum device buzzed. He ignored it. The device buzzed again. Again what he snapped, activating the channel. Marcus Chen, you are requested to attend an imperial reception this evening. An official-sounding voice announced. Pass. It is not a request. The Emperor himself has summoned you. Marcus sighed. Head. Been to 3 of these events already. They were painful. Nobles making polite conversation, while clearly wondering why a grease-stained mechanic was in their midst. Fine. What time? Sunset. Formal attire, please. Marcus looked down at his coveralls, which were currently stained with something he really hoped was just cool and formal attire. Right. The reception was held in the Imperial Gardens, a massive biodome that recreated environments from 100 worlds. Marcus arrived wearing his only suit, which didn't quite fit. Right, he felt every eye turned to him as he entered. The human mechanic, the one who fixed the princess. People whispered. Some bowed slightly. Others looked away. Marcus grabbed a drink from a passing server and tried to find a quiet corner, hiding already. Arya approached wearing formal robes. She walked with only a slight limp now. No assistance? I'm not hiding. I'm strategically retreating. From what social interaction I fix machines, Arya, not people. Small talk is not my strength. She laughed and linked her arm through his cum. And there are people. I want you to meet. Arya led him through the gardens, introducing him to various dignitaries. An ambassador from the Crystalline Collective who wanted to discuss human material science. A trade minister interested in human agricultural techniques. Military commander curious about human tactical improvisation. Marcus answered their questions as best he could, but he felt like an imposter. He was just a mechanic. You're doing it again, Arya whispered during a lull. Doing what, downplaying yourself? You saved my life, Marcus. You changed. Imperial medical practice. You've become a symbol of human ingenuity. I just installed some circuits. You saw what no one else could see. You had the courage to try when everyone else said it was impossible. That's not just anything. Emperor Thaldax approached. The crowd parted before him. Marcus Chen, walk with me. It wasn't a request. Area squeezed his arm and let go. Marcus followed the Emperor through the gardens. They walked in silence past waterfalls and bioluminescent plants. Finally, the Emperor spoke. I owe you a debt. I cannot repay. You gave me back my daughter, Your Majesty. Please let me finish. I have spent months considering how to properly thank you. Wealth means nothing to you. Titles bore you. Position at court terrifies you. Marcus couldn't help but smile. You know me well, Your Majesty. My daughter speaks of you often. She tells me you refuse every honor we offer. What is it you actually want? Marcus Chen. Marcus thought about it. Honestly, sir, I just want to keep fixing things. I want to help where I can, and I want humanity to be seen as equals, not curiosities or primitives, but genuine partners in the Imperium. The Emperor nodded slowly. Then I will give you something. You cannot refuse. I am creating a new position, Imperial Liaison for Human Alien. Technological integration. You will have resources, facilities, access to any technology in the Imperium. Your job will be to find problems that human thinking can solve. And solve them, Your Majesty. That's too much. It is barely enough. You will report directly to Princess Arya in her new role as Imperial. Advocate. You will work together to integrate human expertise throughout the Imperium. Marcus realized this was already decided, and if I refuse, then I will be very disappointed, and my daughter will never forgive you. She helped design this position, specifically for you. She planned this. She is her father's daughter. Political maneuvering comes naturally. To her, Marcus Laffit had been outplayed. I accept, Your Majesty. Good. You start next month. Use the time to settle your affairs. Perhaps visit Earth. I understand you have family there. The Emperor walked away, leaving Marcus standing alone in the garden. Zarya appeared from behind a massive fern. You were hiding there the whole time. I wanted to see your reaction. You're welcome, by the way, for manipulating me into accepting a job I didn't want, for giving you a job where you can help millions of people across hundreds of worlds. Don't pretend you're not excited. She was right. He was excited, terrified, but excited. What happens now? He asked. Now you go back to Earth, see your family, then you come back and we change the galaxy. We did you. I think I'd let you do this alone. You saved my life, Marcus. The least I can do is save you from yourself when needed. They walked back toward the reception. The gardens were beautiful. Artificial, but beautiful. How's your sister, Arya asked Sarah. She's doing okay. The doctors can't fix her condition, but she's adapted. She's studying xenobiology. Actually wants to work off-world. She should apply to my research division. I'm expanding our medical programs. We could use someone with her perspective. You'd do that, of course. Being trapped in your own body gives you unique insight into medical challenges. I spent 3 years experiencing what countless beings across the Imperium face every day. I want to help them. They reached the edge of the reception. Music played, people danced and talked, the machinery of imperial politics in motion. Thank you, Arya, for everything. Thank me by accepting that you're not just a mechanic anymore. You're a bridge between humanity and the Imperium. Own it. I'll try. Good. Now come dance with me. I've spent 3 years unable to move. I intend to make up for lost time. I'm a terrible dancer. I literally just relearned how to walk. I think we're evenly matched. Marcus let her pull him onto the dance floor. They were both terrible, stepping on each other's feet, moving off rhythm, but they laughed. 10 people watched the human mechanic and the recovering Princess, an unlikely parade, symbol of something new. 3 months later, Marcus stood in his new workshop. Was enormous equipment from every corner of the Imperium, a staff of assistants, resources. He'd never dreamed of having. His first project was already underway. Collaboration with Arya's medical division. They were developing simplified neural interfaces based on his designs. Just for royalty, for everyone. Thousands of beings across hundreds of worlds suffered from neural damage now. They might have hope. Marcus's come device buzzed it. Was Arya come to the cafeteria? I'm buying lunch. You don't need to buy lunch. You're a princess. Fine. I'm commanding you to have lunch with me. Better. Marcus made his way through the station. It had been almost a year since He'd accidentally sat at the wrong table, since he'd met a paralyzed princess and changed. Both their lives he entered the cafeteria. Was crowded as always thousands of beings from across the galaxy, and there in the back alcove at that same table, sat Ariyoshi, saw him, and waved Marcus. Grabbed a tray of synth protein, which still tasted terrible, he walked over and sat down. "How's the project going?" Arya asked. "Good. We're ready for clinical trials next month." "That's wonderful. Hundreds of people are going to get their lives back because of you. Because of us, you're funding the whole thing. Details. So what else is new?" Marcus told her about his week, the problems he'd solved, the equipment he'd broken, the assistants he'd probably traumatized with his unconventional methods. Arya shared stories from court, the politics, the reforms she was pushing, the resistance she faced. They ate terrible cafeteria food and talked just like they had for months now too. People who'd found each other by accident, though, saved each other, would become friends around them. The station hummed with life. Humanity was gaining recognition in the Imperium. Human engineers were sought after. Human innovation was valued, all because a tired mechanic sat at the wrong table and saw a person instead of a princess. "Same time tomorrow," Marcus said, as he stood to leave. "Same time tomorrow." Arya agreed. Marcus walked back to his workshop. His life had changed in ways he never could have imagined, but some things remained constant. He was still a mechanic at heart, still someone who fixed broken things in the galaxy, was full of things that needed fixing. He smiled. This was going to be interesting. Behind him, Arya sat at the table a moment longer. She could walk now, could run if she wanted, could dance terribly at Imperial receptions, all because a human mechanic had seen an engineering problem instead of a medical impossibility. She stood and made her way to her next meeting. The Imperial advocate had worked to do laws, to reform rights, to protect Galaxy 2 improved. Both come so far. The paralyzed princess who spent 3 years silently, humble mechanic who stumbled into history together. They were changing the Imperium one crude human solution at a time, and it all started with sitting at the wrong table sometimes. Accidents were exactly what the universe needed.